Hello everyone! Welcome to a different kind of video yet again. I got a comment on my last video saying, "Oh, you should look at Paul Joseph Watson's video on art," and I did. I watched two of them, so we're gonna go through two of these videos because they're roughly short videos. So this will be another kind of lengthy discussion on art because it's fun. So let's get started.
An empty room with a light switching on and off. A blue canvas with a white line down the middle. A urinal.
I like how it says that. Urinal. I want to hear that again.
People running around in an empty room with a light switching on and off. A blue canvas with a white line down the middle. A urinal. People running around in a circle with their fingers up each other's butts. This masterpiece. An unmade bed. Yoko Ono screaming like a demented bitch. Modern art.
That's racist. That's not Yoko Ono. Wow.
Art, or conceptual art, isn't art at all. It's one big circle jerk of pretentious twats trying to make themselves look sophisticated by ascribing meaning to something that's completely meaningless.
So his argument off the bat, this opening statement is this conceptual art is just pretentious circle jerking that takes nothing and adds meaning to it. So does that imply that art has to be blatant? It has to be obvious? Like, you have to, see the meaning? You can't just look at something that have a subconscious meaning to it? I mean, this is, as I said before, it's not to say that there's art that is bad, that isn't bad, or that it might not be what, people might be overinflating the meaning. That does happen, but just because it does happen doesn't mean that all conceptual modern art is like that, and it's kind of hard to do that, but I think the point, mostly with modern art, is to have this discussion, and I think that's kind of where the fun is with art. A lot of people are interested in saying, like, what is art? And they like to push that boundary. You might not like that kind of art, and that's fine. I think, just because we have art that is about it, if it is or isn't necessarily pushing away other forms of art. And that's kind of why I think these kind of videos are wrong, because they're kind of implying this future or this issue that doesn't exist. Like, just because we're seeing this conceptualized art that has more of a level of thought, or something that's a little bit more mundane that has, a deeper meaning, that's not replacing or removing realism. There's still hyper-realistic paintings out there, and they're not going anywhere. But okay.
Listen, there is good modern art, and there are many skilled modern artists. So why is it usually the most talentless, vacuous shit that gets promoted and funded by the art establishment?
Now, this is another perception thing. He perceives that these conceptualized modern trash art is getting the most attention, but just because you see it doesn't mean that it's getting the most attention. It's just getting the most attention because of what the subject is. That's not to say that other works of art isn't as valuable. It's just that people are more fascinated by it. Like, you have a doctor, let's say, that does his job. No one's gonna, care about Dr. Hoo-Hoo. They're not gonna talk about, no one's gonna talk about Dr. Jiminy Cricket. Okay, no one's gonna talk about him. But you have a doctor that does these unorthodox methods that is starting to spread the country. Guess who's going to get more attention? Does that mean that doctor is going to be making more money or is more valuable than Dr. Jiminy Cricket, who does just as much work but more conventionally? Not really. It's just that people are talking to him more because he's loud. It's like, wow, look at this. It's, I mean, that example might not work necessarily, but you know what I mean. Because just because people are talking about this particular art doesn't mean that art is you know, the norm, or it's going to become the norm. It's just what people are talking about because the subject matter is so odd and random. Like, no one would expect to see this kind of art being in a museum. And here it is in a museum. And that's kind of the allure to it.
Well, it's partly born out of elitism. If the artistic merit of a bunch of squiggly lines...
Squiggly lines. But if you look at this painting, there is a lot of brushstrokes being put in. Yeah, there's some dripping, but the drippiness isn't, like, natural, if you look at it. Because it is drawn by a smaller brush. So this has taken time to make. It's not like someone just went to a canvas and did this in, like, 5 minutes. But okay.
Can only be appreciated by a select number of privileged insiders. They can then sneer at the uninitiated and justify their own intellectual... Can only be appreciated by a select number of privileged insiders.
So I can't appreciate that work of art without being an elitist and being inside of a group. Anyone can appreciate art no matter what. It's just that, yeah, for museums and galleries, it is a group of people that kind of pick and choose stuff that they want to show. But that doesn't really mean that you, the viewer, can't appreciate art, and that doesn't mean that the artist cannot show his art somewhere else. We have the blooming technology, we have social media, we have other means to post art. We don't really need galleries as much anymore as it is maybe to make a bigger impact on the art community, but with online booming, you can kind of support the art you want to support.
They can then sneer at the uninitiated and justify their own intellectual superiority.
Now that kind of sounds like he's like angry that other people might understand something and he doesn't. Like, you know how you watch a movie, like let's say that you take your friend to see 2001: A Space Odyssey, and to you you're like, I understand this movie. It's really good. It's very smart. But then your friend doesn't get it, and he's like, oh, this movie's just stupid. It's just there to be thought-provoking and to pretend that like it has a meaning, but it doesn't. This is just to make me feel like an idiot. Fuck this movie. You know, it's kind of like that attitude. It's like, since I don't get it, therefore it must be pretentious and fake, and it's to uplift an elite group to make them sound smarter than they are, and that's kind of a dumb attitude to take things. Yeah, there are things that I don't understand either when I watch a movie, certain movies, or stuff that I might not understand. But I'm not going to necessarily say, well, that movie is for are elitists, and therefore a certain group to make them feel good. I mean, there might be some movies that make you think that way, to feel that way in a movie, but I mean, I usually kind of step back and rethink about it. You know, I felt that way when I saw Antichrist. But, you know, the more I thought about it, I think it is actually, you know, a smart movie. I probably just did not like how he approached the meanings that he was trying to put in that movie. But I kind of have a lot of a hindsight with that movie. And that's, I think, the point of these kind of movies and art pieces, is that, you know, your first impression is negative, but then, you know, on your way home, another day you might be thinking about it, and you're like, you know what, I used to think this was shit, but, you know, now I'm, like, thinking about it still, and I'm actually starting to understand what they were trying to say. You know, it might not happen all the time, but, and again, that's not to say that there are not movies or art pieces where someone's just kind of making a false meaning or whatever, but this widespread generalization of it here is kind of dumb.
When you see someone intently staring at a Jackson Pollock-style vomit canvas, they're not really trying to ascertain its deeper meaning. It's all just an act to...
But...
intently...
Okay, but what is the meaning of this painting? That's the other thing. Like, I think this painting is mostly to show, like, look, you have someone there. I think that's supposed to be, like, sculpted. I think that's a sculpted person. I don't think they would have a person just standing there. And they have, like, scattered out, like, paint vomiting out on a canvas. I mean, you can kind of assume or get the idea that art comes from inside, and other people have other venues of art or how to express it, and one of the ways that she's expressing her art is by throwing up or whatever. A lot of the times you could look at a meaning in a blunt way like that, or you could look at it more like in any other direction. But the craft in this is fine. It's just because the subject matter is a woman throwing up doesn't make it any less skillful, because, making a sculpture that looks realistic doesn't really make it hard. I don't know, whatever.
Staring at a Jackson Pollock-style vomit canvas. They're not really trying to ascertain its deeper meaning. It's all just an act to prove to the other pompous wankers that they're part of the same cult.
I kinda like how he was saying things like, "This is not a piece of art. It is for fucking wankers, dude." He has this very beating tone. He sounds like he got really fucking angry. Like his mom yelled at him about something, and he's just taking his frustration out on a camera.
Of aesthetic relativism, while sneering at the Philistine general public who just don't get it, despite the fact
no one's really sneering at the general public. If you don't get a piece, you don't get it. I mean, you just don't get it. It's really not that big of a deal. Sometimes things go over my head too, Paul. You don't need to take it out on people. Just calm down.
That there's nothing to get.
Here's a test I give my graduate students.
Oh, my friend's here. I want to go.
While sneering at the Philistine general public who just don't get it, despite the fact that there's nothing to get.
How do you know that a piece doesn't have a meaning, though?
Aesthetic relativism. While sneering at the Philistine general.
Okay, but look how dark that painting is. Yeah, you could sit there and say, "Oh, well, he just took a black brush and just kind of painted that whole thing black." But it is somewhat interesting to look at that, because it kind of reflects a dark side of painting. You don't really get a reflection out of it. You don't really get anything out of that canvas. It's just so dark that maybe the meaning is just that it's so dark that you don't even see a reflection. It's like a hole. Sometimes the meaning is not poetic. Like a lot of people kind of think that art needs to have this poetic meaning of value, and that's not necessarily the case all the time. Art doesn't need to be this kind of romantic, poetic, meaningful medium. If you take that lens and you look at movies the same way, then are you gonna say all movies are art? Are Marvel movies art? I mean, I kind of don't consider them art. I mean, I don't know. I just think they're kind of just action movies. Like video games, are you gonna consider Madden art? Are you gonna consider Call of Duty art? I mean, it's kind of like the same argument where it's more of a gray area of it, but whatever.
Public who just don't get it, despite the fact that there's nothing to get.
Here's a test I give my graduate students, all talented and well-educated. Please analyze this Jackson Pollock painting.
I talked about this in the
explain
last
why
video.
it is good.
We don't need to.
It is only after they give very eloquent answers that I inform them that the painting is actually a close-up of my studio apron.
Modern art snobs explain to us the genius of someone like Matisse by claiming that the invention of photography,
the genius of Matisse, the genius of this art that he's kind of shitting on, is the same principles of design. It has symmetry, asymmetry, balance. There's all kinds of stuff you have to put into account. Art isn't just you're painting a picture. Why do you think graphic design is also considered art? Okay.
Made it necessary for artists to be more imaginative and less realist. Bullshit.
Bullshit. But that is an issue, though, because why would anyone commission an artist to capture a family portrait when they could just use a camera? I mean, as I said, it doesn't mean that realism is going away or that no one's getting a painted portrait of themselves. I mean, there's still a need for that, but it's not as big as it was back, centuries ago. So realism is used in a different kind of way, and it's looked at differently. It's still seen as art because it's art, but it's not in the same scope as photography. Okay.
Ron Mueck produces the most hyper-realist works that the art world has ever seen.
And that pieces of art still gets a lot of attention. He's still like a artist that people look up to. If this impressionist dystopia or whatever is coming to invade and take and push out the realistic artworks, how is this guy getting galleries? How is he getting museum exhibitions? Okay.
Yeah, it's Matisse who is embraced by the art establishment.
How is that guy not embraced by the art establishment, though? He's able to get into museums. He was at the MoMA. I believe he was at the MoMA at one point. That he had some artworks there. The guy is embraced by the art establishment. Matisse is also established by the art establishment. Embraced, I meant, because he's using principles of design in his work. He's using the unnatural balance of asymmetry, symmetry, this kind of shit. It's just kind of incredible how we're just now ignoring the basics of design that is also art being used in art. Okay.
While to a large extent, Mueck is shunned. So again,
how is he shunned? He gets work. How is he shunned? Okay.
Goes back to elitism. The general public loves Mueck because he's massively talented and his works are stunning. But the snooty art establishment loves Matisse because they can pretend to be intellectually superior.
Where's the proof of this? How can you claim that someone's pretending to be elitist about art when you're not showing any proof? Is there a statement from the art? Oh my god, I can't talk. The art establishment. Do they have a article out there saying we think Matisse is great? This guy who does realistic sculptures, he's a piece of shit. Fuck him. Everyone blacklist him. Get him out of here. Where is he getting this information from? It just sounds like he's just looking at articles and seeing people like kind of get excited about these unconventional art pieces and then saying, well, see, these people like it. That must be the art community pushing this narrative, guys. It's the lizards of the art establishment. Okay.
To the general public by waffling on about the pathos.
But look at this. This does use design practices. There is like a balance in here, even though none of the shapes are symmetrical. They don't fit like a puzzle piece. It's all kind of jumbled in there, yet it comes off as balanced. Probably because it's the tone of the colors. They all kind of work with each other, except the black, it kind of, gets offset by the other colors, the other brighter tones, so your eye can kind of travel around the piece. It is somewhat engaging and pleasing to the eye, just because of what you're seeing. So that is art. It's using core principles of design, because when you have a design and you try and make something pleasing to people, you want something that comes off balanced and pleasing and smooth. And this, even though it might be a little bit jagged, it still comes off as smooth, because even though the jagged parts of it kind of curve right in. But I guess that's not art, even though I learned that in an art class, and they don't, whatever, okay.
And the intricacy of a bunch of coloured squares. Modern art.
But it's not just colored squares, though. Like, he's literally looking at that literally and not appreciating the balance of those shapes and how they play off of each other. This is not a deeper meaning. Like, if you're saying there's like, well, Theo, you're analyzing this in a different way, but it's just how design fucking works. Like, look at this shirt, for example. See how there's a black square, but there's no edge. You don't see an outline on the edge of the black square, but it comes off that way because of the white. So your mind has this imaginary line kind of wrapping around the black edges. It's a mental line. But that's how design works. This is not a deeper fucking meaning. You understand that, when you look at this, but you see that also the black space is being used, you can kind of see that there's a pattern here. Because that's what it's doing. That's a fucking design. So him just like, well, it's just squares. It's kind of forgetting the whole principle of the design of it. And that is art. But okay.
Is literally rubbish. From a polystyrene sculpture to a bag of waste paper, so-called works of art keep being thrown out because people mistake them for garbage when it becomes impossible to tell
okay, that is kind of funny, but again, it's all a matter of opinion on that kind of shit. But okay.
Difference between conceptual art.
But at the same time, what if the gallery mistaking it for trash? What if that was the point of the art? Because the people are still talking about the artwork.
Art and trash. Then we know we've crossed the line. It ceases to be bold, provocative, and daring.
But again, that's not all of modern art. Like as I said in the other video, modern art is so grand and huge and wide. You can't just look at one thing and say this is what modern art is. Modern art is a lot of things. So just narrowing your vision to one piece of art out of all of modern society is kind of ridiculous. I said this also before. It's really hard for contemporary artists to make a name for themselves because there's so many people doing art during this time that everyone's still trying to fight for a name. And not everyone will get the attention. Some people might get more attention than others. Some might be more famous than others while not getting that attention. Who knows? Who knows? Modern art is so grand, you can't really deduce what modern art is precisely. But okay.
And simply becomes a worthless piece of crap. I had my own experience of this when I visited a modern art museum in Lucerne, Switzerland, appropriately named the Kunst Museum. Seeking respite from an onslaught of modern art.
Man, that's funny, dude.
A leather jacket spray painted and stuck to the wall. A tape recorder of a man whining about how much he hated his parents. I found somewhere to sit down, only to be sternly told I was sitting on a work of art. A wicker chair.
So if you've ever been to a museum, I'm going to assume everyone has been to a museum at one point in their life. What kind of benches do you think that the museum offers for people to sit in? You walk through, you see these like rectangular benches in the middle of the exhibition that a lot of people are sitting in. No security is going over to them and saying, "Oh, you can't sit there." They're sitting on all these benches. You can kind of deduce that's kind of what the chairs look like that you're allowed to sit in. You see a wicker chair just randomly placed in a corner of a museum. Wouldn't you think that might be a work of art? Because it doesn't... Why would they have a single wicker chair? I mean, it's kind of... It kind of baffles me how dumb Paul might have to be to think that a random wicker chair in a museum that looks out of place is allowed for the public to sit in. I mean, I can understand maybe that you're at someone's house. You come over to your friend's house and a guy has that wicker chair just sitting in the living room and you sit on it. Okay, that's an understandable mistake because you're in a house, you kind of expect a wicker chair to be in a house. But you go to a museum, you see these benches in the middle of these hallways that obviously look like that place for public to sit in. But then you see a wicker chair just randomly placed in an exhibition that probably has a fucking name tag somewhere, either off camera that's like there or on the wall. Kinda obvious that that wicker chair is a piece of art. Just saying. I kinda don't believe either that he made up this story to kind of make a point, or he's literally an idiot that can't read, or deduce that maybe that is not a chair for you to sit in. I don't know. It is what it is, I guess.
Painted orange. Seriously. How long before this CBC parody becomes real? And we have people claiming to have created invisible art. It comes down to this.
Yeah,
we have to maintain objective
standards. Of course, that's gonna happen. We have invisible art, dude. Well, technically, we do have that. There is a canvas that is completely empty in a museum. No paint on it whatsoever. Now, I would argue that I don't really consider that art, but then someone could say, well, how is that not art? It's, in the gallery, someone had to accept it to be art. But then it's like, well, then how can we accept that to be art? It's this debate that will always go on till the end of time. And to a degree, I think that's the point.
Standards of quality and talent in order to discern the value of anything. Do you see musicians
Hold on, I want to hear it again.
Of anything? And talent in order to give standards of quality and talent in order claiming to have created invisible art. It comes down to this. We have to maintain objective standards of quality and talent in order to discern the value of anything.
We do have that, though. Again, if you go to any art school, they're not just going to give you an A if you just give them, like, nonsense. They do want you to be detailed in your work and to have some craft. If you propose to a community or to an art institution that this is art, and you're just going there just saying, this is art, and they're just like, how is this art? Explain it. What's the meaning? Well, it means the randomness of art. When you roll the dice, it's random. They're going to sit there and be like, I don't think that's art. So, come back when you come up with something. Like, I wasn't a great art student. I know that's shocking for you guys. You guys are blown away. What if I told you that none of my art professors wanted to give me a letter of recommendation? Does that mean that because clearly Mar was just so good, and it wasn't this contemporary nonsense, dude. They just didn't want to give me the recommendation because of that, or was it just because they didn't think I was that developed as an artist? I'm gonna go with I wasn't that developed as an artist, because I'm still learning. I'm still kind of doing self-taught things. I don't think I took the stuff too seriously when I was in college, which I kind of regret. But, now I'm still trying to kind of learn and push myself, and that's kind of the point. But to say that there's no quality in art and that there's no objectivism in it is kind of ridiculous. Just saying.
You see musicians playing random notes and chords, or vocalists singing out of tune and demanding they be taken seriously.
You can make the argument, though, that in Dwayne Johnson, or the guy that was in the movie Les Miserables, I can't think of his name for some reason. He was in fucking 300. Why am I blanking on this guy's name? He's like, whatever. People say that, that guy can't sing, he's out of tune all the time, and this and that. But people like that album. People like the soundtrack to the Les Miserables movie. People like Dwayne Johnson in Moana when he sang the thank you song or whatever. No, the You're Welcome song. That's what it is. They were not good singers, and people still gave them money for that performance. Whoops.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Yoko. Do you see figure skaters falling over and demanding that they be given high scores? We rightly ask that the artist...
But that's a different context, though. You can't apply other stuff from other places to other things. Like, you can't look at a football game and apply the same rules to baseball. It doesn't work. Whatever.
Has perfected his craft. Piling up pieces of dung and straw on a cheap top doesn't take skill or craft. It took Michelangelo.
Maybe to kind of put all that stuff together it did, though, because, you know, it didn't do it on its own. But okay, no craft.
3 years to carve his iconic David out of a rock. It took considerably less time and skill for the LA County Museum of Art to provide us with a rock. Yes, that's it.
Providing and producing. Providing and creating are two different processes. So, of course, providing would be a shorter amount of time. But looking at this, though, there is some craft in it, though, because see like how angular it is? But again, it's more of the presentation that's being put into it, because then you see that, and you're like, well, what makes it art? Maybe it's to make you gaze at the beauty of nature. You know? No one thinks of a rock when it's like on the side, when it's in its natural habitat. You don't think of it. You know, when you're driving on the highway and you're going around these rocky mountains and shit, you see these big boulders and rocks, and you know, you look at them like, oh, that's just a rock. Fuck it. But you're going here, and you see this rock, and you're just like, oh, there's a rock there. And it makes you think, because it kind of stands out. Now, again, if you want to argue that this is not art, you know, that's fine. That's your opinion. Everyone has this opinion, and I think that's kind of the point of modern art, is more to invite people to a discussion to make you think. And ironically, that's what kind of Paul Joseph Watson's doing, even though he's not aware of it. He is kind of falling for what this artist is trying to get to come across. He is able to communicate. He doesn't think that this is art because of this reason. In a sense, that is giving credit to The Rock as it is a piece of art, because you're talking about art.
A 340-ton rock, and the money that they waste on this shite. $10 million for a frigging rock. $500,000 for a lamppost ring.
That's a pretty big lamppost ring, though. I mean, look how oh, I see. Because it's a functional lamp, but look at that. They have to sculpt the metal in that kind of way. It can't be that easy. But okay. Clearly, art should be devalued, dude. We should make art $5. You know, I price my art to be like 20, 50, you know, around the double digits for now. I mean, just you know, for the work I do, because who am I to charge $800 for something? You know, no one's gonna buy my art. You know, especially since I'm a nobody in the grand scheme of the art community. I mean, no one's gonna pay $800 for my work. And I understand that, so I kind of price it to something that's like I know people are going to be willing to pay for, and something that like even I would be willing to pay for. Like I'd pay for my art for that kind of price, and I think that's fair. The value in art is so different, and it's more sporadic. Sometimes you're going to see artwork that's priced $800, or in the thousands, or the millions. But it really depends on the time, the thought, you know, the effort. But you can't really judge that by just looking at something either. Because you weren't there, you weren't working on it. But okay.
In Calgary.
That's the gross thing, is that tax dollars go to support this. They have one exhibit that...
Tax dollars also go to the army. But we were more upset about it going to the arts. I mean... You could be angry whether your tax money is going to. I mean, you know, no one's going to be happy where tax money goes to be honest. But it is what it is.
It's all junk. It's called junk. That's like part of the name of the exhibit. And you go there, it's like bottle caps that are glued to like a cork board. Like, you fucks. You motherfuckers. You put this on a frame and hung it on the wall, and you actually are charging people to see this? Dog shit. I mean, just total dog shit.
Conceptual art also reflects trends in society, culture, and politics. This is what happens when lefty social justice warriors and cultural...
it's the SJWs, those pesky SJWs. They infiltrated the art community, dude. I know it. They are progressive. They want to save space for art so that they can get more money. Okay. Okay.
Marxists seize control of something and ruin it for everyone else. No wonder when left, justice warriors and cultural Marxists seize control of something and ruin it for everyone else.
But how can you blame the left and the SJWs? Because also, keep in mind, taxes also go through... actually, I don't think he lives in America, so never mind. But still, regardless, it is so dumb to blame SJWs and the leftist media, the left, on the direction of art. It's kind of dumb, but okay.
No wonder gamers are so terrified of them subverting the video games industry.
The gamers, dude.
Conceptual control of something and ruin it for everyone else. No wonder gamers are so terrified of them subverting the video games industry.
But this is also dumb. I've always complained when people complain about SJWs in video games. People are like, well, we're going to see more walking simulators, we're going to see more gun homes, and this and that. Okay, so why are we still getting Far Cry's? Why are we still getting Doom? If video games are such an SJW paradise, why is Doom Eternal getting a new game? I guess Bethesda kind of paid off the SJWs, right? They paid them off, dude. Sound good? I mean, that's not to say that there are people who are pushing a narrative on things, and that they're... Because I've seen it with, like, Jonathan McIntosh saying, like, oh, we need less games with violence, and this and that. I don't agree with that either, but I'm not necessarily thinking that we're gonna go to the point where we're gonna start seeing less of something and more of the other thing. I just don't believe that. That to me sounds ridiculous. But whatever.
Conceptual art is another front in the war on objectivism.
Because also the thing is that what ultimately matters is money. And companies know violence brings in money. So we'll always see violent video games, we'll always see the Call of Duties, we'll always see the Dooms, we'll always see the Wolfensteins, and we'll always see games like that. The only reason why you don't see a new Duke Nukem game is because Gearbox is a piece of shit to begin with. I like Gearbox, but they kind of became a terrible company. What happened to the dice, dude? Oh, it's too far now. Fuck. Well, you know what I mean. It is what it is.
It's this ridiculous idea that something has merit and authenticity based on the flimsiest subjective pretense. Just as a 52-year-old man can identify as a 6-year-old girl and demand that society embrace his delusion, the art world presents us with 90 tin cans filled with feces and demands that we treat it with reverence. Well, I'm not.
It's not really demanding you treat it with reverence. Just because a art institution or some museum offers to have it in a gallery or in a museum exhibition doesn't really mean that we have to love it. People did not like Van Gogh when he was alive, and then when he died, everyone started loving his artwork. Okay.
I'm not going to treat it with reverence. I'm going to objectively argue that it's 90 pieces of shit and it's not art. Oh, but it's so shocking and offensive to submerge Jesus in piss. How provocative. No, it's not. It's just a lame cliche. It's a
lame cliche, okay.
Really want to be offensive, why don't you start drawing life-size cartoons of Muhammad? Why don't you pickle the prophet in piss? Oh, but that's politically incorrect.
Well, if they're putting Jesus in piss, they're not really politically correct now, are they? You can't really be upset if they put Jesus in piss if you're getting upset that they don't do it to others. I don't know. Whatever.
The gravy train of government grants would soon come to a grinding halt. So what happens when people within the art world speak out about the vacuousness of modern art? Well, they get publicly shamed and fired. Ivan Massow, the chairman of the Institute of Contemporary Art, was dismissed when he dared to suggest that the art establishment had, quote, disappeared up its own arse. Massow described conceptual art as, quote, pretentious, self-indulgent, craftless tat that I wouldn't accept even as a gift. And he's completely right.
But that's just his opinion, though. And, you know, every artist has an opinion on art movements, art, society, and all of that. You know, it's the same kind of shit you hear when people talk about, oh, our government's going to shit, our government's different, our government's changing. It's the same kind of discussion. But the thing is that art is always subject to change, and it will always be subject to change, and it's so wide. It's kind of pointless or just ridiculous to assume that all of modern art is going to shit when there's still so much works being made that is, you know, generally nice, hyper-realistic, and stylized. There's all this kind of art going around. You can't really sit there and say, oh, well, that doesn't exist because, see, someone did this kind of art, so that's the norm, dude.
But to utter that the emperor has no clothes is to threaten the very existence of the art establishment. Thankfully, fewer and fewer people are interested in modern art. Although tourism is increasing, attendances at modern art museums are dropping, while more people are attending traditional art museums. There's also a huge backlash against
Probably because the traditional art museums are a little bit cheaper than the contemporary ones, I feel like. I don't know. It's been a while since I've been to an art museum, so I can't really say. But it's also nice to appreciate where art has come from. You know, it's always nice to appreciate old art. This whole thing isn't replacing art. You know, the way that things change, we start to open the scope and all this kind of stuff. It's not replacing something. You can't replace something that's already there. You know, art is always going to be what it is. Now we just get more of a variety of stuff. And just because we have a variety does not mean that we're erasing other parts of art.
Conceptual art, led by groups like the Stuckists and the Art Renewal Centre, both of which are, of course, under constant attack from the art establishment. New York artist Lisa Levy is protesting against modern art by sitting on a toilet for 2 days. If she was British, the Turner Prize people would be falling over themselves to give her their annual award. Conceptual.
But how does that protest work, though? I'm gonna sit on a toilet. Yeah, you show them. Artists to sit naked on a toilet for 2 days to protest against the bullshit art world.
Sitting on a toilet for 2 days. If she was British from the art establishment. New York artist Lisa Levy is protesting against modern art by sitting on a toilet for 2 days. If she was...
What kind of protest is that? Okay, guys, you know what? I'm protesting Trump. I'm gonna protest in the best way possible. I am going to sit in a chair and hold my stylus. I'm protesting. I'm protesting, dude. I'm sitting down holding this. That's it. Yeah, I bet Trump is already sweating, dude. Sweating as hard as I am. Okay.
British, the Turner Prize people would be falling over themselves to give her...
I mean, wouldn't that kind of, in a way, and just be more modern arts?
Annual award. Conceptual
what a dumb
art
protest,
is shit.
TBH.
It doesn't enrich our culture. It degrades and cheapens society.
How does it degrade if we just have more variety in art? Again, this modern art that he's shitting on is not the majority of art. And our society is not being degraded because of that. It's mostly being degraded, if you ask me, with Hollywood. And just kind of what movies are being pushed. But at the same time, with Hollywood, though, it's more costly to do these artistic films that not everyone's going to go rush to see. Well, look at Annihilation. Annihilation is a really good movie, but did people run out to the movies to watch that movie? No. No one really cared. People would much rather watch it on Netflix. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Great movie. I love that movie. But probably no one watched it because it was an indie film. It was directed by a Greek director, so it was kind of a foreign film, even though it had American actors in it, but, it is what it is. So of course no one's gonna really talk about that movie, because ultimately shit is a business. And that's not to say that, I take that back. I'm not necessarily saying that Hollywood is degrading our culture, but I think it's just what the culture is becoming. People want stuff that's simple and digestible. They don't want really to go to a movie theater to think. And I think that's what all of this is stemming from. I think that people they just want mediums to be simple for them to understand. They don't like this contemporary art that has this conceptualized meaning to it because they just don't really want to look at something and have to think. And that's kind of sad. It's sad that we're getting this backlash of people who are refusing to accept art that requires them to think. And that is kind of shitty. I don't think it's art. I don't think it's Hollywood anymore. I kind of turned back on that. And I don't think it's really I don't think it's anything like that. I just think it's just how people are. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I know I might be sounding like I'm shitting on people who refuse to think, but I don't necessarily think it's their fault. I don't think it's that they're wrong in wanting something simple and stuff like that. I think there's a time and place for that kind of shit. There are times where I like to watch Marvel movies because I just don't want to, constantly think all the time. There is sometimes I want to have fun. But I think it's just that we can't really sit there and say, well, we must get rid of the stuff that makes us think and have more of one thing than the other. It's kind of counterproductive, and it kind of is promoting what you guys kind of hate. If you don't like SJWs for imposing their beliefs into a medium, then you imposing your beliefs in a medium that it should be this particular way is kind of doing the same thing. I think we have it both ways. I think we could have art that is direct and digestible, but we could also have art that's more provocative and conceptualized. I don't think we necessarily need to get rid of one or the other, and I don't think that's what's going on either in the art industry, because there's always going to be hyper-realistic artists out there. But okay.
By exalting the vulgar, the crass, and the scatological, and the people promoting it are preventing us from enjoying modern art produced.
You're preventing yourself from enjoying modern art because there's all kinds of modern art out there. There's an exhibit about a guy who used Lego bricks to make works of art. Does that mean that that's not modern art because it's not painted in a certain way? It's not realistic. It's just Lego bricks put together. I mean, these aren't just like pieces to connect. They form things like people or a bench, whatever. But they used Lego bricks to build it. But I guess that would mean that it's not art because it is just using Lego bricks. But they also use it in a way that's not instructed by the Lego company. But okay.
By artists with actual talent. Those people are contemptible, regressive twats.
If they're regressive, then wouldn't we be getting back to the golden age of art if they're regressing?
Should be ostracized, shamed, and left alone to play with each other's poo while genuflecting over its artistic brilliance.
So angry. And the guy works for Alex Jones, my favorite source of information.
Hey, I just checked, and modern art is still a pretentious, meaningless, nihilistic shit show. What about this piece of crap? Looks like something I'd use to insulate my roof. No, it's #beautiful. Want to use these ugly tiles for your kitchen floor? That'll be $250,000. Some nails hammered.
Why would you use... no.
Into a piece of burlap. That just sold for over $700,000. Look at the length of the...
I think I know. I think I know his big issue with art. I think I get it. He is angry that stuff that he doesn't understand is worth so much money. But okay.
The description. Look at this. Rudolf Stingel. Untitled. Listen to the description.
The majesty of hieroglyphs is suffused with a sense of greater substance than the sum of their parts. The resulting panels of stark bright silver were transformed through a collaboration with the audience in a series of uncontrolled impulsive marks and messages carved into the surface.
In other words, he stuck a piece of aluminum foil to a board and asked some random people to scroll cack-handed graffiti into it. That'll be $250,000, please. Oh, yeah.
But that is kind of artistic because you're taking people's, like, opinions or statements that they want to make, and they're putting on a piece of art that's going to be immortalized, more or less, throughout the ages. So, right now, it might not seem as much, but 50 years from now, hundreds of years from now, people are going to look back at that and be like, wow, look what these people put onto this. And it's kind of interesting in that kind of way. But okay. It's not art,
oh, yeah.
it's
and
terrible.
All that guff they write about it to disguise the fact that it's just a piece of foil stuck to a board. That's called obscurantism. It's a fancy way of confusing people so their initial discernment is temporarily suspended, making them afraid of criticizing such art for fear of appearing uncultured or ignorant, when in reality, their first instinct that it was total bullshit is correct. It is total bullshit, just like most modern art. If a couple of teenagers is the fact that it's just a piece of people to
a series of uncontrolled
graffiti into it. That'll be $250,000, please. Oh yeah, and all that guff they write about it to disguise the fact that it's just a piece of foil stuck to a board. That's called obscurantism. It's a fancy way of confusing people so their initial discernment is temporarily suspended, making them afraid of criticizing such art for fear of appearing uncultured.
If you're afraid of sounding uncultured with your own fucking opinion, then maybe you shouldn't be voicing your opinion if you're that insecure. Like, I know sometimes, when I was a kid, my parents would take me to these fancy films, whatever, and a lot of their meanings would go right over my head. And I'd be like, oh, I don't think that movie is good. And they would kind of be like, oh, shh, whatever. And they would kind of make sure I didn't say it so that, people around me didn't hear me say that I didn't like the movie. And that always annoyed me because it was like, it's just an opinion. Just because I don't like a movie doesn't mean I have to be quiet. That never really changed me. I didn't change my opinion. Like, yes, it is a good movie. I still was very opinionated on it. Just because my parents were like, shh, don't say anything, quiet, doesn't mean that I didn't voice my opinion. I mean, they were okay with me having that opinion. They just did not want me to sound stupid around other people. But I didn't care. I didn't give a fuck. And I never changed my opinion on it. I did change my opinion on it, however, when I went back to watch it. I used to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey when I was a kid. Didn't understand the movie. Thought it was boring. Watched it again when I was in college. I liked it. I actually liked the pacing of it, and it really grew on me. I watched it again, a third time. And I loved it. It still was interesting and fun to watch. But again, if you have an opinion on something, and if you're afraid that you're going to sound ignorant, you don't have to worry. Just voice your opinion, criticize what you want to criticize, and move on. You know what? Sometimes you might want to go back on it too and look at it. Be like, you know what? I said this movie was garbage when I first saw it. But I want to watch it again. I want to see if it's still a piece of shit. And you watch it and you liked it. I used to not like A Serious Man, a Coen Brothers film. I thought it was long, boring, and slow. Watched it again a few months ago, and it was actually a really good movie. I loved it. I think when I was a kid, I fell asleep during that movie, and I guess I missed some parts of the story, and it just seemed random to me. But I watched it again. I was like, that's a pretty interesting movie. It was about this guy that kind of has no control over his life, and shit just happens. And I kind of liked that in that movie. It was really interesting to watch. So, moral of the story is, never feel insecure about your opinions. Always be open. Be open-minded. and go off for the first impression, and then if you want, you can always go back. Nothing wrong with that.
Or ignorant, when in reality, their first instinct that it was total bullshit is correct.
But if I go through my first instinct, I might be misguided on what it actually is. If I went through my first instinct with A Serious Man and 2001: A Space Odyssey, I probably would not appreciate those movies as much as I do now, so I gave them another chance. But if I just go off with my first impression, then I'll never would have known that those movies were good. But okay.
It is total bullshit. Just like most modern art. If a couple of teenage kids can fool visitors to a gallery in San Francisco into thinking that a pair of glasses they placed on the floor was part of the exhibition, then there are no standards whatsoever. I mean, can I just pick up...
But that in itself is kind of... It is kind of art, if you think about it. It's just... when I saw that, when I see that, I'm thinking to myself, what if that's the art, though? Do you get people to believe that something random is art? It can be art itself. That's kind of funny. I like that. You know what? I like that. That does have a deeper meaning, dude.
Up a guitar and start playing made-up out-of-tune chords while warbling incoherently and expect to have a #1 hit. Ever thrown a waste paper at a bin and missed? That's art. Ever stepped on a tin can?
Well, that could be art because it's the randomness of when you throw pieces of paper. You're not going to get the same results as that piece did. Just saying.
That's art. Congealed dried noodles sprayed gold. And how dare you suggest that that's not art? After all, someone stuck it in a glass box, so...
That could be art because it has a statement to it. But I guess art can't have statements, dude. No. Art has to be simple, it has to be straightforward, and it has to be clear to the audience. I have to think. Throw it out. Garbage. Okay.
So it must be, right? A man lying on a mattress, screaming for 2.5 hours. The wooden figurine was made by someone else, and that's not art. But Ken Kagami stuck a foam cock and balls through it. Now it's art. And then there's this classic. Deep down, these people must know they're pulling off a monument.
Well, that could be art because it's kind of like, it's a statement of sex. Okay.
Mental scam, right? I mean,
it could be seen that way because you can look at sex and be like, oh, it's very artistic to see sex. And, instead of it being a woman, you just see a metal pole hitting another beam. Okay.
Hurst literally wrote "incinerate me" on this, whatever it is. Is he taking the piss? Well, no, they're pulling off a monumental scam, right? I mean, Damien Hirst literally wrote "incinerate me."
It says "incinerate me," but look what's in there. It can all kinds of stuff that you can kind of pull from that. I mean, I need to see it in person, but I see a cup, I see a little piece of paper. I mean, there might be stuff of significance that can make it more implied as to maybe it's stuff that people regret to see or regret to have. But okay.
Me on this, whatever it is. Is he taking the piss? Well, probably not. As Sohrab Ahmari discusses in his excellent book The New Philistines, people have always railed against bad art. But what's happened to the art world in the last few decades is immeasurably worse, because in trying to break the final taboo, the art world decided that it no longer had to be aesthetically pleasing. Art no longer had to reflect sincerity or the human spirit. It no longer had to require actual skill, talent, or hard work to create it. They changed the rules. And now, no matter how lazy...
What rules? Like, anyone could argue that the examples he had are aesthetically pleasing, yes. Even the guy banging the pole with his fucking crotch can be seen as aesthetically pleasing to some people.
Pathetic, worthless, ugly, or meaningless a piece of art is, so long as it's been filtered through the lens of social justice and identity politics.
Social justice, okay, so what relevance did those pieces have that had to do with social justice? Oh, because you can have rejection? But we do have rejection. I can't go to the MoMA with my art and say, hey, you should put me up, dude. You should put my work up. Come on. They're just gonna be like, no. Bye. Goodbye.
Then it can be considered art. So long as its banal conceptualization can claim to address some imaginary injustice, be it colonialism, racism, misogyny, or whatever, it's celebrated.
But there are some who simply can't take this sort of art.
Some imagine through the lens of social justice and identity politics, then it can be considered art. So long as its banal conceptualization can claim to address some imaginary injustice, be it colonialism, racism...
Racism is imaginary? Racism is imaginary. Yeah, it's a made-up issue made by those pesky SJWs. I mean, whew. Really? Okay.
Misogyny, or whatever.
Or whatever. Misogyny. I mean, clearly sexism and racism are not in our society anymore. We fixed it, guys. Okay.
Celebrated.
But there are some who simply can't take this sort of art seriously.
I think it should be called the Junk Shop Prize, because if you put all this lot in a junk shop, you wouldn't notice any difference.
But it's conceptual art. Some might say you're missing the point.
Well, the point of conceptual art is it's meant to have profound thinking behind it. If you think there's any profound thinking behind this, I think you're missing the point yourself.
What kind of logic does that make? If you're missing the point if you're not thinking about it. Well, if you are thinking about it, you're missing the point. What? And how do you know there's no deeper meaning to other things? I mean, think about that story about those teens that faked a expedition. That in of itself can be seen as art, because you look at it at first glance, and you're like, oh, well, see, that's not art, because see, some random kids putting glasses on the floor, kids thought it was an exhibition, and they took pictures. But then they took a picture of that, and said, oh, see, look, they think it's an exhibition. That in of itself can be seen as art, if you just think about it. And I wonder if there's a conspiracy about that, because sometimes there are some artists that kind of do that kind of shit to fuck with people. They kind of have you think of it in other ways. I don't know. It's like that urinal piece they showed in that other video that we watched. Some artist kind of went to a cafe, dropped it off, left. People were like, "Wait, what the fuck is this?" And then someone put a signature on it, and people thought that was art, and thus that's how people saw it as art, because they thought it was. But okay, it is what it is.
Ultimately, this is about the politicized abuse of art to advance and ingrain far-left narratives. Just as communist dictators used socialist realism as a political tool to thought police to advance and ingrain far-left narratives.
Yes, art is a far-left narrative. So then, why would they deal with racism, though? Wouldn't that be... because if the left and the liberals want to have safe spaces and hug boxes, then you would think that they would want to not talk about racism. So then why do they make art about racism, then? Whoops.
Just as communist dictators used socialist realism as a political tool to thought police...
And guess what other kind of dictators use art? Hitler.
Control and manipulate public opinion. The regressive
Everyone does that. There's not been a single government that did not try to use art to kind of push an agenda. You'd think that Trump wouldn't do that? I mean, Trump would probably do that. Hillary would probably do that. Obama did it with the Hope campaign, with that artwork with Hope and it has Obama's face. I mean that was used with art. Everyone uses art because art is a communication tool. People communicate with art. It's like music. Music is a language. I mean, it's not like a literal language, but people can communicate with music. They can communicate with art. But okay.
Left uses modern art, and by extension popular culture, as a weapon of indoctrination. And just like the communists used workers and farmers as political props to further their own power,
yeah, because dictators never did that, right? No.
Progressive left utilizes gays, transgenders, Muslims and other minorities as human shields for their agenda. These avant-garde social justice artists like to think of themselves as dissidents fighting against the repressive mainstream. That's why they're obsessed with tearing down the supposed establishment, the patriarchy, white male privilege or capitalism. While the
I like that he did a video kind of shitting on the art establishment, and then he says that these artists are trying to go against the establishment, and this is stupid. It's kind of funny. It's kind of ironic. We must go against the establishment, but these people going against the establishment, they must be ridiculed and mocked. Okay.
Archie Gallery, the Turner Prize and Tate Modern are simultaneously sponsored by giant corporations. They're also rebelling against the very idea itself that art should be beautiful.
If people say it's art, it's art.
Well, I think that's absolute rubbish.
So you could say anything is art?
You just have.
You could say everything is art. But the point is that...
Is my shoe art?
If you say it is, I have to then judge it on those terms.
Well, I think that's a totally ridiculous argument.
Well,
it's a ridiculous argument. If someone presents something as art and then someone has to judge it with the idea that it's art, that's ridiculous. If they have to judge something on the pretense that it's art, then they could also say it's not art on that same judgment scale. Just because someone says, I gotta judge it as art, doesn't necessarily mean that it's art. It just means that it's being judged, and then they could also be thrown out. Okay.
Well, I never heard anything more ludicrous in my life.
Well, it's sort of like...
But the real establishment, the elite institution...
And I like how he cuts off the interview. Can't have any more. I mean, it could lead to more nuanced discussions. No nuance here. It's just straightforward. No art that makes you think is not art. We gotta keep that narrative. You can't just have a nuanced discussion about it. Okay.
Institutions are stuffed full of social justice identitarians. Any independent thinker left within these institutions who dares to flout their dogma is witch hunted, shamed, and dispensed with. And there's the irony.
Where's the proof? Where is this proof that these witch hunts happen? I have not heard of a single art being chased out of a museum because of what they did. I've seen it in other places, but not in art. Okay, maybe it was me, dude. Maybe I'm being maybe there's a witch hunt against me. That's why I didn't get the letters of recommendation, dude. That must be it.
Identitarians are not dissidents. They're the ultimate conformists. They're not fighting the repressive mainstream. They are the mainstream. They are the establishment. And they're using modern art to
Which is kind of also funny coming from people kind of like Paul Joseph Watson. I've seen these kind of talking heads around, and, you know, the only one I kind of... I've seen them kind of around. The only one I do kind of enjoy is Mr. Menaker. I don't really agree with all of his stuff, but there are some videos that he does that I do agree with. But a lot of these kind of talking heads kind of people on YouTube that claim that, oh, we're against the mainstream are ironically part of it. So Paul Joseph Watson here, claiming that he's against the mainstream, that we should be against the mainstream, we should go back to quality, is ironically part of the mainstream himself. But okay.
Enforce that control. They're trying to entrench it further by poisoning popular culture with identity politics. And that's why this matters. People might say, Why are you so obsessed with it? Why don't you just ignore it? Because they're not content with having their dogma confined to a modern art gallery. No one even visits modern art galleries anyway. Have you ever been to one? They're always virtually empty, while real art galleries are usually packed. That's not...
That's because one has a long-standing established reputation. Like, those are historical. Those paintings are historical. They've been around for years. They've been celebrated for years. Modern art, no one looks at modern art as much because no one really sits there. Like, no, I would even challenge people, name like 10 modern artists that are celebrated worldwide that everyone knows. There might be a few. But they're not that mainstream. They're not that, well, maybe not mainstream, but they're not like a household name. If you look at like Michelangelo, Picasso, Van Gogh, those, you know who they are. So when you see a museum that have those kind of paintings, you're like, I gotta see this, you know? People celebrate Van Gogh. People celebrate Michelangelo. People celebrate these artists because they have a long-standing history in our society. Modern art doesn't really have a long-standing reputation as much when you compare it. I mean, maybe down the line they can have a bigger name, but that's why they're empty. That's why these established art museums are more filled, because they're more educational for starters. So you get a lot more of the educational side of people going in. But it's also, you know, nice to see the old masters and seeing what they made in the past. Why do you think the Greek temples are such hot tourist attractions? Because they're ruins? No, because people want to appreciate the old temples. Okay.
Where the battle is taking place. The battle is for popular culture. They want it on your TV screens, on your movie screens, in your music, in your advertising, in the school textbooks your kids read. In your face. If you want a vision of the future. Imagine a social...
Hold up.
Confined to a modern art gallery. No one even visits modern art galleries anyway. Have you ever been to one? They're always virtually empty, while real art galleries are usually packed. That's not where the battle is taking place. The battle is for popular culture. They want it on your TV screens, on your movie screens, in your music, in your advertising, in the school textbooks your kids read.
Advertising, really? We want fucking avant-garde advertising? Okay. What is this complaint about movies? Indie movies and thought-provoking films do terribly consistently because no one wants to go to a movie and think. People want to go to the movies to have fun with their family and friends. They want to go there, watch a big action movie. Why do you think action movies are so prevalent? Why do you think Marvel movies and Star Wars are always being made every year? Why do you think that is? It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that Disney's pumping out these movies. It's because it makes a lot of money for them. And people like to watch these easy action movies that are easy to digest. No one's going to go see A Killing of a Sacred Deer or The Lobster, because those movies are very weird and no one knows what they are. But those movies are very interesting and they're very smart. They treat the viewer with an intelligence of that you'll be able to understand what they're talking about. The Lobster has a very, very strong theme of relationship and romance and the stages of that people go through to get into a relationship. And it kind of goes through all that in a very abstract kind of way, but it's very easy to understand if you think about it. Same thing with The Killing of a Sacred Deer. It takes kind of an old story mythology and kind of puts it in a different context. It's very interesting. So of course why are we shitting on these movies too? Come on, man.
In your face.
Yeah, how dare you teach kids to think in an abstract way? They need to be thinking black and white, simplistic kind of means. Why have nuance in our schools? Fuck nuance, dude. Sound good?
If you want a vision of the future, imagine a social justice warrior autistically screeching at a human face forever.
States of America.
Visit the...
Okay. Yeah. Alright. That's... And he's not screaming in our face? I mean, look at how he has the camera, like, dead on to him, and he's just sitting there screaming.
The Twitter feed of any modern art organisation, and you'll see what I mean. Last weekend, MoMA ran a feminist Wikipedia editathon. Basically, a bunch of Trigglypuffs and beta manlets got together to vandalise Wikipedia with baseless propaganda. Because the very term feminism has been so discredited, thanks to the behaviour of batshit crazy feminists, that it's now considered to be more of an insult than a compliment. What the fuck has that got to do with art? Nothing. But again, everything has to be filtered through the lens of social justice. Look at the front page of Tate Modern's website. Feminist art. Videos about women artists. Discover more about women artists. Women artists in the collection.
Women artists are actually kind of hard to kind of find, because throughout the years in the art community, a lot of women artists don't get a lot of attention or reputation as male artists, and that has been a pattern in art for years. You know, but okay, let's just ignore history, right? Let's just ignore that. Okay.
Art by women.
I mean, the reason why they're talking about women artists is because they want them to have more of a name. Because, you know, you can name a lot of male artists. You know, the only one that people I could kind of see naming would be Frida Kahlo? I mean, there might be one more that I'm thinking of that I can't think of the name. But, like, there's not a lot of women artists that a lot of people talk about. So maybe that's why that they're publishing women artist collections, because they want them to have a name. But okay.
Artists in the collection. I mean,
but where's the man artist? Where are the male artists? I mean, it's not like that they have a Sistine Chapel. Not like we have that sculpture of Dave. Not like we have Van Gogh, Picasso, Rothko, Magritte. That's like 6 right off the top of my head, and there's tons more. But where are the men? Damn it.
Geez, are men even allowed to enter your crappy gallery anymore? I really wanted to revisit artists in the collection. Art by women artists in the collection. I mean, geez, are men even allowed to enter your crappy gallery anymore?
Are men even allowed? Are you fucking dumb? Oh yeah, look at these women artists. Are men allowed to come in? What? What kind of correlation is that? The correlation he should be making, which I thought he would, but he didn't, which surprised me, I guess. But I'm surprised he didn't say, "Well, what about the men in art? Where's the male art, dude?" Even though there's tons of it, but okay. But no. Just because we have collections of women art, does that mean that men can come in and look at them? Paul, are you that? You can't be that dumb. Come on.
I really wanted to revisit this cinder block full of rocks and this masterpiece. But again, everything has to be filtered through the lens of social justice. Like hanging up your used sanitary...
Why? What? Wait, what? I don't quite get how social justice has to do with fucking art. Because it's thought-provoking and looks like trash to you. Does that make it social justice? You know what would be kind of funny? If you find out that all these artists that do this are all conservatives. That would just be funny. That'd be great.
Towels to challenge the shaming of female menstruation. 1, you're never going to make bleeding from your genitals not gross. Sorry. And 2, That's not art. But again, everything has to be filtered through the lens of social justice. Like performing a twerk for every black man shot dead by police and asking the mostly white audience to count every single one. Yeah, count those twerks while that humongous cellulite-ridden ass jiggles in your face, you racist honkies. 1. More white Americans are shot dead by police despite committing less violent crime. And 2. That's not art.
Okay.
But again, everything has to be
so
filtered the mostly white audience to count everything has to be filtered through the lens of social justice. Like performing a twerk for every black man shot dead by police and asking the mostly white audience to count every single one. Yeah, count those twerks while that humongous cellulite-ridden ass jiggles in your face, you racist honkies. What?
But why would anyone want to count, and who's counting? I think it's adding a little bit more to the piece than you don't really need to. You don't have to appreciate all art. I kind of don't get these kind of videos from these people saying like, oh well, this is an art and this and that. Art never asked for you guys to love it instantly because it's art. Just because something is art doesn't mean you have to instantly love it and worship it and appreciate it. That's not how art works. I can make art, and that doesn't mean that you have to love it. That doesn't work. I'm sure there's a lot of people who hate my art and think that I'm a shitty artist, and that's fine. You have that opinion. Just because I make something doesn't mean you have to love it. No one is asking you to love it. Just because it's in a museum doesn't mean you all have to love it. Someone loved it enough, sure, to put it in a museum, but that doesn't mean that everyone has to love it. That's not how it works. Okay.
1. More white Americans are shot dead by police despite committing less violent crime. And 2. That's not art. But again, everything...
But the first part of that doesn't really have to do with that art piece, though, because it's not asking... It's just asking about the black side of things. But whatever. It is what it is. We don't have to get into that.
Everything has to be filtered through the lens of social justice. Amari provides innumerable other examples in his book, including how the narratives of entire Shakespeare productions are being disfigured to cater to 21st century social justice brainwashing.
So, for example, suggesting that the fairy potion that alters people's desires in her debut production of A Midsummer Night's Dream was a date rape drug, or injecting all this modern slang.
But Paul, I hear you say, all art was once
people's desires in her
to cater to 21st century social justice brainwashing.
So, for example, suggesting that the fairy potion that alters people's desires in her debut production of A Midsummer Night's Dream was a date rape drug.
Well, if the drug changes, if it changes your desires, it kind of sounds like a date rape drug, if you think about it. So let's say that I'm on a date with someone, and I'm like, you know what, this person's not into me. Well, I'm gonna give them this drug, and then they'll be into me. Isn't that kind of rapey? I mean, just think about it. I mean, if she willingly drank it, that's different. And if she knew that it would change her desires, okay, fine. But if she wasn't aware and of the drug in her drink, etc., it's kinda rapey. Just maybe not even kinda. It might just be rape. But again, that's using the brain, dude.
Or injecting all this modern slang.
But Paul, I hear you say, all art was once modern art, and every new movement was criticised. They laughed at Picasso. They laughed at Matisse.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's arguable that Picasso and Matisse...
So you can't say that this stuff's arguable? Okay.
...is art. I mean, I don't personally like it, but I'll...
You don't like Picasso, you don't like Monet?
...criticised. They laughed at Picasso.
How is this not art, though? Because it does, like, look at it. It clearly took effort and craft to make this. You can't make this yourself. How many people have recreated Picasso flawlessly? Okay.
They laughed at Matisse. Well, At least it's arguable that Picasso and Matisse is art. I mean, I don't personally like it, but I'll concede that it's art. It's not arguable whether a literal piece of trash is art. It's
you could argue it. There's always people that are going to say that it is, thus creating an argument. Henceforth, it is arguable.
Literally a piece of fucking trash. Yeah, but it's all about busting taboos and being daring. Bullshit. What about this? Is this daring enough for you? Well,
so if someone says, "Oh, it's daring," I'm also kind of tired of these videos. Kind of keep regurgitating. Well, they say it's daring. Daring is not a reason to say this is art. So now you're gonna start criticizing what you can consider art, or what words you use to describe it. But even then, I don't even think that daring is stuff that people use to discuss about art. When people say they like art, they don't just say these buzzwords. What if they have a very thoughtful reason why something can be art? Are you going to dismiss them because it's like, well, see, you said a buzzword in your phrase, so that means that it's garbage. Oh, okay.
It was deemed too daring for an exhibition in London celebrating, of all things, free speech, where it was banned. Banned because it was too inflammatory and offensive. Offensive to who? Terrorists? Banned because it might offend Muslims, but wait, I thought ISIS had nothing to do with Islam. The real reason it was banned is because it busted the one taboo they will never allow to be busted. Political correctness. Busting taboos my ass. The only real taboos left are the ones that impinge on your
But since that art exists, I'm sure it's not cheap. I'm sure that artist is not starving.
Precious ideological safe spaces. And if anyone in the art world tries to bust them, they're ostracized and silenced. And that's why modern art...
Can you prove any of this? The only thing he kind of proved, I guess, would be that art that he showed her like a little bit before. But I mean, he didn't really silence or berate the guy or whatever. He just wasn't allowed to be in that exhibition. That doesn't mean that he can't get another place. I mean, if there's an image floating around that he's able to find, he clearly found a home.
Is absolute crap. It's not about being daring or challenging the orthodoxy. It's about fortifying the orthodoxy. Nobody has created this much conformity.
But the argument could also be made that that what they are fighting against has been a norm for a while. So if you just establish what is deemed the norm, it's not really fighting against anything. So let's say white privilege. Just say, I'm sure someone's going to get angry about this, but if I make a piece that is kind of saying, well, see, the white man struggles the most, people are going to say that's not really art because the white man doesn't really struggle that much. They struggle. People struggle regardless, sure. But, I mean, if you look at other stuff, other people might be suffering more than the white man. Okay, I mean, it's all perspective at this point. But the only people that are kind of putting in this political meaning and themes are people who are just looking to complain about the liberals, dude. I don't know. I kind of don't agree with his argument. I think it's just kind of pointing at Boogeyman, pointing at buzzwords. Oh, it's the SJWs. Oh, see, we have crap art because of the liberals, of the SJWs, this and that. But art can't be anything. Art can't be silenced because of the internet. You can just post it anywhere. But okay.
In the art world since the Soviets, when artists were forced to conform to socialist realism or be locked up. 80 years later, how does the Western modern art world treat artists who don't conform? They're ignored, they're shamed, they're made irrelevant.
I know how that feels, man. I got shamed, I got ignored. The art establishment is putting me in a box, dude. That's it. Everyone, I want you to give me all your money. Okay, we're going to show it. We're going to shove the art establishment, put him in a can, $1 at a time, everyone. So everyone, get your wallets, get your mom's credit cards, start throwing them my way. That's it. I had enough of this subjugation. I'm an artist. My art is great now. It's perfect. Clearly they're silencing me, dude. That's it. Time to take my sandals off, take the gloves off. Now I'm gonna come after the establishment, dude.
They want this conformity to spread like a virus. Identity politics plagued high art is infecting popular culture. The obsession with political correctness, social justice, and identity politics is beginning to ruin movies. Compliance with the edicts of identity politics, not objective quality, is the measure by which we're told to judge this medium. Look at the list of Oscar nominees. Almost all of them had some identity politics angle. They're incentivizing.
But the movies were also well made. I'm gonna try to find
this much. How does the Western modern art world treat artists
who don't
conform? They're ignored. They're shamed. The obsession with political correctness, social justice, and identity politics is beginning to ruin movies. Compliance with the edicts of identity politics, not objective quality, is the measure by which we're told to judge this medium. Look at the list.
So let's see. Hacksaw Ridge, I think, was a movie. If I remember correctly, wasn't Hacksaw Ridge a movie about war? Wasn't it a war movie? Whatever. Or was it about an oil tanker? I don't remember. Arrival had nothing to do with identity politics. If you'd seen it, you would have known that. You would know that. Hidden Figures was. La La Land wasn't. Mansions by the Sea wasn't. I haven't seen Lion, so I can't really describe. I can't really say the Moonlight. I kind of remember, and I guess it was, but the movie was still interesting. Let's see.
Oscar.
Captain Fantastic, I haven't seen that. Fences, I didn't see. I don't think I've seen Elle. I don't think I've seen Loving.
Oscar nominee.
Some of the movies I don't see. I haven't seen. Nocturnal Animals I haven't seen. But yeah, I mean, these movies are good movies. Some of them are pretty good movies. I don't know what he's talking about. Did he watch them, or did he just look at a trailer and say that's it? That's propaganda, dude.
It's almost
because it's very clear what's about propaganda film. Like, look at Ghostbusters. The way that they've written the characters are shallow. They're not good. They're poorly written characters. But these other movies that in this list themselves have well written characters. But okay.
All of them had some identity politics angle. They're incentivizing political dogma at the expense of cinematics and storytelling. The Oscar-winning movie for Best Picture, Moonlight, struggled to get beyond 7.5 on IMDb. Yeah.
It was a good movie, but just because it was good doesn't mean it's, like, flawless.
Yeah, but it's about a gay black boy and the lead actor is Muslim. That's 3 gold medals in the Oppression Olympics. Quick!
But
hey, give it an Oscar. Any movie that...
But it was well shot. I mean, again, and even then, look at the Oscars. No one really takes the Oscars seriously anymore. I kind of don't because, you know, that they gave the Oscar to Leo when he did that movie with the bear. He got attacked by the bear. The Revenant. I did not like The Revenant. I thought it was boring. Didn't really care for it. But he got the Oscar for that performance, which he barely did anything. If you think about it, he just kind of got attacked by a bear. That's the most he ever did in that movie. The rest is just him lying down and groaning. It was nobody, dude. But, yeah, they didn't give Leo the Oscar for Wolf of Wall Street, which I thought he was better in. I thought he was much better in Wolf of Wall Street, and he should have gotten the Oscar for that role. But I think they gave it to someone else that I don't think deserved it. But he got it for The Revenant. I don't think he should have gotten the Oscar for The Revenant. But whatever. Oh, what's wrong? Wrong window, dude.
Fails to obediently genuflect to these force-fed social mores is panned. They even attacked the recent movie about the Boston bombings. Great movie. Oh, but it's offensive, they said. It's Islamophobic. In reality, it's only offensive to fucking terrorists. But because it dared to vaguely hint at the fact that Islam is not a religion of peace, it had to be disparaged. London Has Fallen got panned for the same reason. Now they're...
London Has Fallen looked like a bad movie, to be honest. I didn't really think that movie was gonna be good, but okay.
Complaining that historical dramas set in England don't feature enough black actors, despite the fact that if they did, these dramas would cease to be historically accurate. Food bloggers who showcase foreign dishes are now being called racist. Zoolander 2 is transphobic. I could give you 1,000 examples. Everything has to be filtered through the lens of social justice and identity politics.
But you also say that those are just opinions as well. Saying Zoolander 2 is transphobic could be an opinion of someone who might think it is because of reasons that they have. You don't have to put them on a pedestal. They're just giving their opinion.
This is how...
Like, I could make the argument that My Big Fat Greek Wedding is offensive to Greeks, but I'm not gonna fucking do that. So, there you go. It is what it is.
They control art. This is how they control culture. This is how they control society. This is how they henpeck, demanding constant homage be paid to identity.
This reaction itself is kind of silly because he's complaining about how movies like Patriots Day and London Has Fallen, which looks like a bad movie, but okay, those two movies got panned for that reason. But then he says how it's unfair that those movies get shat on, but then movies that have this don't get shot. I mean, it's kind of funny that they're both kind of that he's displaying the same double standards he's implying that they have. Because the thing is that those movies like Moonlight and all that kind of stuff, it is kind of rare. I mean, how many movies can you say has the male lead has a lead character that's gay? You can find some movies in somewhat recent years that have that kind of storytelling, but how many successful movies have it? And, I was listening to a podcast, Sardonicast, good podcast. One of the things that they were saying was, one of the questions that they posed was, when are we ever going to get a video game where the main character, a AAA game, is going to be a gay man? Aside from the RPG games like Mass Effect and those kind of games, just a game that's linear and you're a character that is a gay man. And it's like, you can't really think of a lot of games that have that. I mean, I'm sure there might be some, but, not a lot of AAA games have that. And it'd be interesting to see what would happen if they start making games with that kind of lead. Because I have a feeling people are going to get upset. I just have a feeling. Because the thing is that it's the same thing that I've been hearing with these kind of movies. Oh, the second that we start having movies that are about gender issues, homosexuality, and all these other things, people are quick to say, oh, this is SJW, PC culture, kind of nonsense, this is propaganda, dude. But you haven't seen the movie. You don't know if it is propaganda. I've seen the Ghostbusters reboot. I can kind of say it is a propaganda film because of how bad the characters were written. But okay.
Interfering in the creation of movies, which, given the paucity of quality in traditional art forms, represent one of the last true art forms left, along with video games, which are also under constant scrutiny and thought policing by permanently offended identitarians. So if you're ever unfortunate enough...
I love, in 2 videos we've seen, he has put the hashtag Gamergate up, but he doesn't talk about it. He's like, well, it's happened to gamers. Alright, moving on. He doesn't talk about it. Okay.
To find yourself in a modern art museum, and you're standing there trying to figure out why nothing resonates with you on any level, completely bemused about why everyone around you isn't laughing hysterically, bemused at the fact that they all appear to be taking it seriously. Don't be alarmed, because they're only pretending to understand. They're faking it to look trendy. You're
yeah, that's what it is. We're all faking it, dude. Sound good?
The only honest person in the building. Modern art is complete bullshit. And that's because it's not art. It's merely a physical manifestation, born of the demented minds of social justice warriors, identitarians, and pretentious hipster douchebags. It's not art. It's politicized indoctrination. It's weaponized culture.
Weaponized culture. Man. Okay.
It's socialist realism for the 21st century, and we need to reject it in all its vulgar forms before it succeeds in ruining absolutely everything.
Yeah, that's gonna ruin everything, dude. The fucking SJWs are ruining art. The SJWs silenced me! With fucking art, dude. Come on. Where's my fucking prizes? Even Cleo's upset. Even Cleo is angry about it. Look at her. She's fucking angry. Cleo is art, okay? If you disagree with that, you're part of the problem. Thanks for watching. See you next time.